I don't think taxpayers should look forward to this fight as usual. Taxpayers should probably be pretty disgusted. But this one is going to be interesting. What a cast of characters. Like this can't help but turn into a full-on dumpster fire. This cast of characters is now threatening to throw college sports into chaos by promising to fix the current college sports chaos, which should lead to plenty of chaos. We know this. To get Donald Trump to do something you want is a pretty simple formula. That is, number one, suck up to him and just tell him how great he is. Two, make sure he and his family get rich off the deal, or at least think they're going to get rich off the deal. And number three, be a celebrity. That's the mix to get him to do what you want. That's it. And he'll do anything, apparently, for those things. Apparently, including this. I don't know how his family, now to be fair, I don't know how he and his family could see getting rich off this deal, but the other two parts work, and they work already. They've happened already. That part, two of the three parts are done. That's why we're even at this point. Enter, as we get a cast of characters here, enter Senator Tommy Tuberville, who is promising the people back in his home state of Alabama that he will fix college sports. That's code for college football in the South. He's in Washington trying to make sure the ultra-rich spenders in college football, that's Texas and a few others, can no longer buy up all the talent in a sport they owned under Nick Saban. Next up, enter Nick Saban. He's a legend and a celebrity. Donald Trump likes that. Notice how this mixture is kind of working. That's why Trump is going where he's going. Nick Saban, and this is not new for him, and he isn't a fool, obviously, and he's a thinker, and he's been in this place before. So this isn't politics for him. Nick Saban is an advocate of reining and spending in college sports, football, and I assume he knows how to sell. He probably knows how to sell Trump, but the fact that he's a celebrity and a legend is good enough for Trump. So Tuberville and Saban seem to be convincing Trump that it'll look cool, because that's what matters to him. It'll look cool if he gets involved. So Trump is going to do what he always does. He promises an executive order. Kid you not. Should he? Well, of course not. Any reasonable, sensible taxpayer would say, that's nuts, man. What are you doing? But we're not reasonable and sensible taxpayers, and they've gotten to him, and they've gotten to him in the ways that matter to him, so he is now promising an executive order. If he gets positive feedback, which I suspect he is, was at a commencement address to Alabama this past weekend, so what matters most in the South matters to him. It all adds up, doesn't it? It's not that complicated to see the political move of this, and then you can mix that with the, I don't know, I'll say sensible and pure views of Nick Saban, and it all kind of playing itself out. Then it's going to get nuts. The push from Saban and Tuberville is to cap the spending in college football. Okay? And I never like to give Tuberville too much credit because I find him to be a complete doofus. But he's selling it the right way in his home state. He's saying it's not just about football, it's about sports in general. And he's not wrong about some of the things that he's saying. So their idea is to get the ear of Trump, get the ear of Trump and convince him to institute some sort of cap. Saban also wants contracts, and I'm sure he's advocating for that. And he's never liked this name, image, and likeness thing anyway. But he's never been pulled into it to run it himself. And so the next best thing is Tuberville saying, hey, Nick, be a celebrity. Tell my man here, D, that you need him to fix this. And they did. So it should have been set up from the beginning. It never was. You've got chaos. You've got sliminess. You've got out of control spending on some end. I mean, it's just it's rudderless. It has no guardrails. Okay. So the obvious question for all of us, for all of you, should the president, This part I didn't see coming, right? Should the president of the United States be doing this? And the answer, of course, is no, if you're sensible and reasonable as a taxpayer. Can the president of the United States issue an executive order for this? The reason is reining in spending, fixing it all. There's no governing body and it's not fair and it's, need to balance this out. That kind of logic. Can he? And that's debatable. I mean, he can. Whether or not it'll be fully enforced is another question, which turns into another dumpster fire. So if he does, which he says that he's going to do, and if he gets enough positive feedback from the South, which he will, legal experts say you can expect chaos. I mean, I think you can go outside of a courtroom and expect some chaos. So the summary of the issues, for people who don't follow this, and most people don't care, but you can't appreciate you can appreciate the political aspect of this. I don't think you should like it, but you might at least understand it. Then you've got the legal aspect of this, the financial aspect of this. Then you've got the employment aspect of this that is going to be turned. It was already upside down. It is about to be completely turned upside down. So here it is. A court ruling several years ago, a reasonable court case made its way through the court system. College basketball players said, rightly so, why can they use my name and image in video games and I get nothing for it? That doesn't seem quite reasonable. So he sued and it worked its way through the court system. And eventually the court said, you know what, the guy's got a point here. So if you're going to, these athletes should be able, if they would like, should be able to sell their likeness, commercial likeness, and be compensated for it. Historically, they've not been compensated for their likeness. That's why it's called name, image, and likeness. College football and basketball programs took that, twisted it, completely turned it on its head, and found a way so they could start. They took the court ruling and said, well, that means these guys can get money. If they can get money, we'll make sure we give them plenty of money and toys. So they took it, twisted it, started handing over money and gifts, and still call it name, image, and likeness. It says, hey, man, it's perfectly legal. That's the way we operate. That threw the door open for everybody, but it really threw the door open for the ultra, ultra, ultra rich. Those programs that spend have no regard for any sort of reasonable spending. They'll throw any amount of money at winning in football. Oregon, backed by Nike money. Ohio State, Michigan, Texas, and yes, SMU, and probably USC, but their coach sucks. So they took that and threw the door even more open. Well, it didn't take long right, because Texas this is not a joke, they have a parking lot of Lamborghinis. Okay, so they can throw toys and money at players the Deep South can't, because they have a large, rich alumni base. All these schools do. They're willing to spend money on winning in football, and they're in bigger markets. The South is at a disadvantage. It's at an economic disadvantage in a game where there's unlimited spending. Okay, that's the setup, right? So that sucks for the Deep South and Alabama, because the SEC and Alabama has been dominant in college football, and you can feel it slipping away really quickly. Okay, they can see it and feel it. And they're mad, they're upset, it matters to them. So Tommy Tuberville, senator, is probably hearing this, trying to come up with something that people care about. I guess he doesn't care about things like recessions in Ukraine, so tackle the next most important subject to taxpayers, winning in college football. So he reaches out to Trump, who is loved in the Deep South, needs a diversion from his idiotic tariffs plan. So you kind of have this perfect political mix. It works geographically. It's the sport that matters most geographically. And then you have the not so rich taking on the ultra rich with a heavy dose of government intervention. That's the mix. That's where we are. If you'd say, well, guys, Jeff, how's this changed? What do you mean it changed over the weekend when the president of the United States said he's going to issue an executive order? I mean, that's how it changed. It escalated in a hurry. The obvious setup here is the White House has no, that I know of, lawyers, please correct me if I'm wrong, but this can't be too far off. The White House has no governance over college athletics, nor should it, of course. But Trump's not going to care. I mean, now, there's another aspect to this and says he says a lot of stuff and he doesn't follow through. And so it's possible Tommy Tuberville, Nick Saban could get burned on this. But, I don't know. It just depends on what the feedback is like. If he thinks it makes him look good to certain people, then he'll use the executive order sledgehammer. He'll try it. And it's going to be entertaining to watch. So here's what's reported now. Yahoo Sports, President Trump reportedly considering executive order limiting NIL. The latest complication in the ongoing fight over how college athletes should be paid comes straight from the pen of President Donald Trump. The president is considering an executive order regarding NIL payments after a meeting with former Alabama football coach Nick Saban on Thursday night. This all according to the Wall Street Journal. Saban complained about NIL to Trump, who was in Tuscaloosa to deliver the University of Alabama's commencement address, and he says he believes the system has damaged college sports. Trump agreed with Saban, of course, and would look at drafting an executive order, directing aides to study what such an order would say. By the way, what would such an order would say? What? Like, what is... How do you even draft this thing? Hey, rich guys, stop it. There, fixed. Senator Tommy Tuberville helped set up a meeting between the two. Tuberville politically is playing this thing pretty well. And look, I think he's, like I said, he's a doofus, an absolute doofus. But he has, one, he knows the sport. Two, he probably knows Saban. Three, he knows Trump really well. Four, he knows the people of Alabama. And five, he knows what matters most to them. So then we get to the obvious question for all of us. And I don't know the answer. And I don't think anybody does, except what I've read is if and when they go here, which sounds like they are, you can expect absolute chaos because nobody, first of all, this thing has been a mess in the legal system anyway. The terms don't even make sense anymore. But then you throw an executive order. Does that mean it's absolute? Right? Nobody that I know of thinks that the White House has any right to intervene in college sports, but it will. Then what? That's the real question. The $1 billion setup for everybody is then what? Right? I mean, what form, if there's pushback at all, and I got to believe there is, but if there's pushback at all, it's a $1 billion question now, multiple, maybe $10 billion question. Would Texas, Michigan, Ohio State, Phil Knight, SMU, would they push back legally? And I don't even know what grounds except to say, you have no business being here. None. Then you get this other political question. Will Republicans in those states, state of Texas, your man Rafael Cruz, he's on the clock. I tweeted it over the weekend. Rafael Cruz is on the clock. Think what a spot he's in. The ultra-rich, deep pockets University of Texas gets whatever it wants with whoever it wants, however it wants. So you got that influence. But then could Rafael, right? Remember, he once despised Trump when he called his wife dog face, but then he figured out it's politically smart for me to suck up to him. And so we don't, where is Cruz now? Is he at the suck up stage still, or is he wanting to fight back? Will Republicans push back against the executive order? You say, well, yeah, man, this is silly. You sure about that? Because that is typically political suicide. It's not a Republican Party anymore. It is a MAGA party. And that is a fast track. You make him mad. He says bad things about you. You lose primaries. Period. End of story. So would they push back? Would they? And then you have to keep extending this thing out, right? So imagine all of a sudden, okay? So then let's just say the Republicans decide, don't push back. Look, and I don't disagree with Nick Saban. I've said for a number of years, this thing is wrong. It's a wrong setup. It is not a reasonable setup. It's not. This is no way to run this business. It is clueless. It is slimy. It's awful. So I don't disagree with Nick Saban. I find it really weird. You need the President of the United States to fix this. But since he's going here, then what happens next? Because imagine for a second. Imagine all of a sudden you are XYZ transfer. Okay? Wasn't that long ago a player, star player at Alabama said, I'm going to Texas, and it's because of the money. Absolutely. And more of them, some don't say it out loud, but of course it's obvious. So all of a sudden you show up in a parking lot full of Lamborghinis where you get to pick your color. All of a sudden somebody says, look, things have changed. We got an executive order. What's that? Don't worry about what that is. We can't do it this way anymore. We got basically have a cap. So instead of that Lamborghini, and orange looked really cool for you. I'm happy for you, but you can't drive it anymore. But you can get a Ford Fusion. We have one in gray. Well, I didn't come here to get a Ford Fusion. I came here to drive that orange Lamborghini. Yeah, I know. The rules have changed. We can only spend X amount. What happens then? Now, this would be, I assume, technically everybody, right? I mean, Oregon would have to say the same. Ohio State would have to say the same. I mean, they would be capped. But you're now going back to star players, star college players who've now lived a few years in a world where they get whatever they want if they go to the right place. All of a sudden, somebody says, look, we'd love to give it to you. I know the guys in the past couple of years have had Lamborghinis, but we can't do it that way anymore. Then what? Do the players push back? Do the players sue? Players' agents sue, which I assume will be the case. I do. I assume that will be the case. And then once this salary cap, which is what these guys want, and it probably should exist, once a salary cap is implemented, or a payment scale, or whatever you want to call it. They don't like to say salary cap. They like to come up with other terms, but it's all the same thing. You would cap the amount of spending. Then would college players strike? Are they going to challenge to the point that they say, until this is settled, guess what? Texas, Ohio State, you know what? We're not playing. Deal with it. Would they do it? Could it get so chaotic? Remember, the first weekend of the year delivers not just two of the best programs, it's the two richest. What if those guys are told there's an executive order in place and they're not going to get the kind of money they thought they were? They're not going to be playing for $6 million a year or $4 million a year with all the toys. They're going to be playing for $300,000 a year and they get a Ford Fusion. What if they're pissed? What if they say, you know how we can make sure we get what we want? Let's all sit down in the locker room together. I don't think they will, by the way. I can explain all the reasons why I don't think college players would strike, but I think their agents will fight like crazy. That's all the stuff that I think you're going to have to face. If an executive order, sounds like it is, handed down, I suspect, lawyers again, but I suspect he gets kicked out of a court pretty quickly. Or Republicans in those states in Ohio and Michigan and Texas say, no. We're going to follow its rule. Let's just go along with this, everybody. And then they all say we're going to go along with it. Then you've got to go convince the players that they've got to now live in a world that is half the price that it was just a year earlier for their former teammates. Imagine that chaos. For that matter, imagine one of them popping off about Trump. He'll lay into him. You'll have total trash talking between agents, politicians, and Trump. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's great for my business. Terrible for you. Terrible for fans. Awful for coaches. But pretty good for the talk show business.